Welcome back to Limited Supply, the podcast where we get deep into the tactical and strategic side of e-commerce, digital marketing, and building consumer brands. I'm your host, Nick Sharma. I've spent the last 9 years building, scaling, and investing in brands. And through this show and my weekly newsletter at nick.co/email, I'm here to share everything I've learned, the wins, the losses, the experiments, the tactics, and the insights, all so you can unlock your next $100,000 in revenue. Today's episode is a good one, but before we dive in, let me tell you about our chosen sponsor for this week's episode. Big screen ads without big screen headaches. Roku Ads Manager is a self-service CTV platform that helps advertisers drive outcomes across the funnel. Start today at advertising.roku.com/limited supply. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode. So I want to focus on basically a handful of things that everybody's talking about. Q1 is typically that time where, you're not running heavy promos unless you're a health and wellness brand or a fitness brand, maybe food and bev. You're taking advantage of this new year, new you mindset, right? Everybody's in the mindset to lose weight, sleep better, run faster, lift heavier. And so you may be taking advantage of that and running some sort of a promo there. This is typically the Black Friday equivalent for vitamin supplement brands. However, this is also the time where, for most cases, CPMs are down on ad platforms. There's just less congestion in the highways of bidding and auctions for these ads to be shown on specific people's screens. And so it's generally a good time to test things out. Everything is generally a little bit cheaper. It's a little bit slower. So it really gives you time to properly test and flush things out. I don't know if we're going to get into the actual how to do the testing part for today. I'll talk about it a little bit per channel, but specifically when I think about the how, I'm talking about how do you approach creative? How do you approach finding the right, whether it's creator, collaborator, the right audience, building an offer that fits the channel and the channel experience that somebody is having before they get to your website or to a shopping experience to buy your product. But anyways, let's get into it. So the first one is actually, and I put this up at the top, is internal creators. Now, internal creators, you remember I had Hudson on the podcast, an interview we did with Hudson at Ecom Founders probably a couple months ago. And Hudson is I think now it's just called the Hudson method or the Hudson way or the Hudson strategy is what I'm hearing. But Hudson has basically decided that, he's not going to go out and hire a bunch of random creators. Instead, what he's going to do is build his own network of what he calls internal creators. These are essentially contractors and freelance creators who exclusively create for Comfort, which is his apparel brand. So why do I think internal creators is a channel that's worth testing? Well, first of all, it's not a channel. It's more of a content assembly line that makes every other channel cheaper and faster. For some brands who I know leverage this role well, they may also have this role kind of named like internal creative strategist. Now, the difference would be that the internal creator is actually making the content themselves, whereas the creative strategist is probably just coming up with ideas that then get tested across a network of creators or agencies or freelancers or whoever it is in your kind of like content assembly line that you've got going on. But with an internal creator, you get a ton of advantages, in my opinion. One is just speed, right? If you have an idea and you have an internal creator, within the same hour or 2 hours, you can have that concept done. An internal creator does not require an editing team. They go in and use their thumbs to edit the video themselves. They know exactly what is primary footage, what is B-roll, what is behind the scenes, what angles to incorporate, all of that kind of stuff. They also tend to know, they just have a better pulse on what kind of hooks are working, what is trending in the platforms, whether it's TikTok or Reels or Shorts, right? Like what is it that's actually driving engagement and usage on these platforms? And then how do you then apply that to the brand that you're working at? A lot of people tend to fall short here because they feel like this role is too expensive, which to me is crazy because if you're spending, 200, 300, $500,000 a month on Facebook ads, and you're telling me you can't afford, 5 to 6K on the low end, maybe 10 to 12, 13K on the highest end. You can't afford that, but you're spending 3, 4, 500K a month in media on these ad platforms. This 6 to 12K internal creator would get you so much more efficiency out of that media spend. And we know that this short form style is the dominant creative format for anything paid or organic, right? So why keep trying to source random agencies and pay them 15K, 10K minimums to try to get something to work when you could just go find your own internal creator who's entirely dedicated? The 100% of their share of mind is just dedicated to testing new ideas, new concepts, new angles, new hooks, new storylines, new formats, all of this, right? And I can't even stress it enough, like how straightforward this actually is. The output of creative is insanely high. If you're able to understand, if this person can come in also and really understand how your organization works, both from a politics standpoint and approval standpoint, but also what is within brand or what is off brand and what's allowed to test and how far can you push those guardrails, then in a perfect world, this person is not only creating, but then kind of oversees and helps you run all your different external creative partners, whether it's a agency, whether it's other UGC that you source from customers, whether it's freelancers and creators that you find on TikTok that you want to bring in. And again, creators from TikTok, they don't necessarily have to be people who are standing in front of the camera and talking, but they can just be people who are really good at motion graphics or people who are really good at building statics, whatever it may be. All that said, hiring an internal creator, it's a force multiplier for your brand. You can basically get, I know brands that are doing 5 to 10 short videos a day from an internal creator, with 2 to 3 of those going straight into ads. And to be honest, I don't know why more brands aren't doing it. You also get the whitelisting benefit, right? If you whitelist from a creator, your CPC goes down, your CPM goes down, your CTR goes up. If you happen to really, like when I worked at Hint, this was also 8 years ago now, but I used to go get creators verified on Facebook and Instagram. This was back when you couldn't just pay for it. Now you can pay for it. You can get your internal creator, give them $14.99 a month, let them get verified, run the ad with a verified account. Performance is way better. If you're also, okay, now let's say you don't, I'm just going off on a tangent here. Let's say you don't want to spend 6 to 12K a month, right, on a full-time internal creator, but you are the founder and you have an Instagram account, or you are on, honestly, even if you're on the marketing team, I used to do this and whitelist my own account back in the day. Create an account, whitelist it, verify it, get it going, start filming stuff, put it out, see what happens. The time from ideation to the ad is live and now we're seeing in the feedback loop if it's good or not can be less than 30 minutes, 30 to 60 minutes on average. It just comes down to how badly do you want to try it out and test it out and put it out and see what happens, right? You could run the same idea, the same process of, all right, we have this angle. Let's say we're selling a hydration mix. We have this angle for, busy moms who don't do enough to stay hydrated because they're just so busy. They're running from one place to another, right? You could go and brief that with an agency, and then they have to go shoot that or somehow, claw together a handful of AI-based clips, which, by the way, have to now be labeled in ads. So I don't know how that's going to play out. I know we're seeing a ton of AI stuff, but I'm curious to see how that plays out in terms of ads. But if you're briefing this with an agency, you're talking 2 to 3 week minimum just to get the first concept out and in your ad account. If you have an internal creator who understands what the brand likes, what they don't like, what's been tested before, what hooks work, what headlines work, what subject lines work in email, all of that data and information gets centralized in this one person's brain, and they can use that to go and produce this one ad for moms within 15 minutes, 30 minutes. So internal creator, I made it number 1 because if you do nothing else, this is the easiest thing to get up and running in terms of budget-wise, cost-wise, resources-wise. Plus, once you have somebody who's good, which it's not that hard to find somebody who's good. Think about how many amazing pieces of content you come across any social network or really anywhere. Creators are everywhere now, and they're only going to continue being everywhere. So the more you can adapt to how you can basically lean into that, the easier it's going to be for you to continue staying ahead and keep getting ahead. There's even, I'm sure you've seen on, if you're on Twitter, there's this kid, Josh Suggs. He's known as like the street interview guy. So many brands just hire him to create street interviews. And what is he doing? He's basically assigning a creator to your brand and then testing a bunch of stuff. Street interviews is one that massively hits right now. If you had an internal creator, could you go do that? Hell yeah, you could, but you don't. So you end up hiring Josh, and he does a very good job, to be honest. All right, next one is YouTube stuff. So I have YouTube stuff and TikTok stuff as two different ones, but YouTube stuff comes to mind because most brands are heavily reliant on two channels. That's usually Meta and Google, right? It's a tale as old as time. Typically, two brands are able to get on those two channels, ride their wave up to, or ride their revenue to like 10 to 20 million, and then maybe even 30, 40. But after that, they try to figure out, okay, how do we lean into more top of funnel, more middle of funnel? How do we get more brand out there? How do we do more storytelling? And granted, there are some brands that don't really have to diversify. I don't think those are good brands to necessarily look at and say, oh, wow, if these guys got to 100 million on two channels, then I should be able to do the same. That's not necessarily the case. They also have, potentially a great product channel fit, right? They might have a great product audience channel fit. They might have a product that is basically riding the trend of whatever it may be, whether you're in lockdown in COVID and they did really well that way, or there's a big movement for X and their product clearly sits right in the middle of that movement, whatever it may be. But I put YouTube stuff here because YouTube is actually a phenomenal channel to drive more awareness. So anytime I've done a holdout test on YouTube, specifically focused on ad reads, pre-rolls, mid-rolls, it always works, but when it's coupled with another performance channel behind it that's also working hard. So for example, YouTube alone, looking at the results, you might see some uptick in that 8 to 12 week period, but YouTube plus Google plus Meta working together, but YouTube is sort of like sprinkling out the dust in the new audience, typically works really well in that 6 to 10 week window. And you can see actual results. It's enough to go ahead and say, yeah, we should go ahead and invest much more in YouTube. Now, the other ways to play with YouTube, which I'm a huge fan of, one is sponsorships. So think sponsorships, partnerships with creators. So these are in the actual videos themselves. These are creators or YouTubers reading the ad from start to finish. A lot of times you might see, in fact, actually, who does this best, obviously, is Mr. Beast, because most creators, what they'll do is they will start your ad read, and basically start to finish is just the ad read. What Mr. Beast does really well, and now a lot of other YouTubers adopted this as well, is like you kind of get the ad read going, but you still have clips of your main video in between. What that does is it keeps people engaged. It doesn't let you skip because you're there for the content, right? But you need to get read the ad. That's one, that's how Mr. Beast makes money. But two, that's what the brand's goal is, to try to get in front of more people. So the reason I like these kind of sponsorships and partnerships is, one, if you can get in with a really good team that understands how to approach these creators and YouTubers, and how to go to them with the right script, and who to go to, and what to pay them, and what kind of model and what kind of offer you have. And you can track all of this, which is easily trackable. You can easily start to understand, okay, which creators actually work best for you, and then which ones do you go heavy on. And, maybe you find 5 or 6 out of the 20 that you tested that are really, really good. You'll also, one of the best benefits is these ads. When you run an ad on YouTube, it's programmatic, meaning it's served to that person and that's it, right? It's served to that one person who's watching at that time. But with YouTube creator stuff, like what we're talking about now, if somebody reads a pre-roll ad at the beginning, that pre-roll ad is staying there forever. So, Graham Stephan's a great example of this. He used to do these Morning Brew ad reads all the time. And Morning Brew, to this day, because his videos are evergreen, right? They're all about personal finance and how to save money and whatever it may be. They still get views till this day. And as a result, Morning Brew still gets new email subscribers from that link in description. So you can't discount just the sponsorship, partnership stuff based on 14 days worth of sales, although that is probably the best way to understand which of those creators you should continue doubling down on or tripling down on. and continuing to create with. But you also benefit from this kind of ongoing brand awareness that you get from it as well. Now, the other way to look at YouTube is more on the affiliate side. And we'll go into TikTok shortly, but YouTube is trying to compete heavily with TikTok in terms of getting more eyeballs. They're trying to steal time away from TikTok. So right now they're making a heavy push into creator commerce, which I'll be honest, I haven't played around with a ton, but my approach to this would basically be very kind of similar to TikTok, is finding a group of creators, trying to figure out how you can integrate with them, and rolling it out that way. And the reason I'm pausing is because I'm thinking there's, I use a Ridge wallet. I got a Ridge phone case here on my desk, and Ridge actually does a really good job with this with MKBHD, Marquez Brownlee. He's obviously one of I think he is the biggest tech YouTube channel, one of the biggest YouTubers in general. And many of his YouTube videos, at least from what I remember, have Ridge products linked below them. He created a custom design Ridge wallet. He reviews iPhones, so it makes total sense for him to have the iPhone cases linked there. He also did a video reviewing the Tesla Cybertruck, where he fit 2 suitcases, Ridge suitcases in the back. Those were linked below. And he's making an affiliate cut on all of those. Now, I'm not exactly 100% sure how that affiliate commission works. But, for example, with Amazon, if somebody clicks the affiliate link, that creator now gets, call it 3 to 9% of that entire cart, not just the one product that was ordered. So all that said, YouTube is another one that very easy to track, in the sense that if you're running the sponsored stuff, the programmatic stuff, the ads, right, through the Google Ads platform, run an incrementality test. Easy way to understand. If you're running YouTube creators, sponsorships, partnerships, mentions, pre-rolls, mid-rolls, host read, yada, 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 use custom URLs. So maybe it's, goodanya.com/MKBHD. And that is then, then that redirects to, drinkgoodanya.com/partner/MKBHD dedicated YouTube page with all the UTM codes. But you just make it easy on the front end, because, if you know me, I love my vanity URLs. Let me put you onto something if TV is felt too hard. Roku Ads Manager is a self-service connected TV platform. You can build campaigns within minutes, optimize them inside the platform, and keep billing simple. It's built for growth and D2C advertisers who want a low barrier to entry and no big commitments. If you want to get on the big screen without old school processes, go to advertising.roku.com/limited supply. The last thing I'll say on YouTube is, and this goes, I would say, pretty in general with creators, is don't give them a script to read. Before I even worked at Hint, I was just basically trying to hustle. And one of the things I was doing when hustling was I was finding these deals where I could find like at the time it was mobile games that had 90 to 100 million monthly users or players, and they wanted to integrate with YouTubers here in the States. And so I used to help them kind of marry those two opportunities together, basically, help one another. And then I would take a check out of that, like a small percentage out of that. And the biggest thing I learned was that you cannot tell YouTubers what to say. You can give them guardrails. You can give them a couple of bullet points. You can tell them, hey, basically stay within these parameters, but do not give them the verbatim, word for word or phrase for phrase type of a script. It sounds insanely inauthentic. You have to remember, you're not advertising to who you think your audience is. You are stepping into somebody else's world, and then they are going to speak about it. So they have to speak natively to their own channel. And when you go ahead and don't allow that by giving them a script to read, the downside is these people immediately know it's an ad, but not only is an ad, it's just a terrible ad. So with any creators, I would say, focus on that. I'm going to skip around and jump actually into TikTok, just running off of YouTube. Now, TikTok I put into one line here, but TikTok Live, TikTok Shop, TikTok Affiliates, it's been a couple years now. This is roaring. TikTok Live, I know for a fact, has calmed down. Brands that were making 60 to 100K per live are now making, a fifth of that now on the same kind of live streams. But it's not dead. It's still there. And there's still the arbitrage. The arbitrage is still there. It's just smaller, but it is still there. TikTok Shop and TikTok affiliates is still ripping. And TikTok they're smart, right? They got everybody in on their super low fee. I think now the fee might be up to 10% and going up again soon. But they're making a ton of money and it's working. And whether you're a supplement brands are absolutely destroying it on TikTok. But whether you're a supplement brand, you're an apparel brand, you sell a little tchotchke, you're selling a watch, and by watch, I mean lower price, not talking about a $10,000 watch here. But whatever it is, TikTok Shop is ripping. And it just comes down to understanding, if you understand how to work with creators and how to put out content that feels relevant, engaging, interesting, exciting, and basically, allows somebody to get sucked in with their eyes. And I'm giggling because me personally, I've been trying to work on not getting sucked into the short form. I've tried to almost eliminate short form from my PM hours of the day because I realize my sleep is actually horrible when I watch short form content before sleep. That said, does not mean you can't still take advantage of the arbitrage that TikTok has created. You got to make sure that you've got product that's going out and being seeded, which I'll talk about in a second, because product seeding I think is universal, not just to TikTok. But you want to have product seeding, you want to have somewhat of a brief or kind of an outline, and then you really want to the beauty of TikTok is letting 47 different creators share 47 different POVs as to why they use that product. So if it's a hydration product, you want 47 different POVs. You want the mom talking about it. You want an athlete talking about it. You want somebody who's weightlifting talking about it. You want somebody who's just trying to, go about their day and be more hydrated talking about it. You want somebody who's trying to get better sleep to talk about it. The beauty of TikTok is you get all of this content, all these different angles, and then whatever does well, and by well, I mean, does over the baseline of your normal creator sent or creator seeded videos, you light those up with ads. Give them a percentage of the upside, right? Give them a percent of spend. Light it up with ads. They're going to be your best ads. There's no need to go and create a bunch of net new stuff when you can get all these creators to do it. Plus, they directly benefit your TikTok shop. There's so many benefits to this TikTok ecosystem. It blows my mind that more brands are not I just don't understand how they're not all over it. If you don't have somebody here who can be all over it and really go deep on it, then you should hire somebody overseas whose entire job is to just run and manage TikTok shop. Okay. There are people who live in Argentina, in Brazil, in Sri Lanka, in India, in Ukraine, in all over the world. They run channels like TikTok Shop and TikTok affiliates for brands here. These people exist. They know how to do it. So if you don't have somebody doing that now, find somebody overseas if it's a cost issue and make it happen. Blows my mind. There's so many benefits to this, right? The biggest benefit that nobody talks about is the middle of funnel. And what do I mean by this? The top of funnel and the bottom of the funnel. Those are generally the easier parts to the brand, right? The bottom of funnel is probably, for people like me, it feels the easiest, right? Because it's just, okay, you build a phenomenally converting website. You have a great offer, good content, good storytelling, good ads, et cetera, et cetera. For me, that stuff is easy. The slightly harder piece is probably top of funnel, right? How do you get your name out there in a way that's not cringy, corny? How do you do top of funnel without just spending paid dollars behind channels that claim to be top of funnel, right? And then the hardest one for everybody, and this is where most brands fail. A lot of venture-backed brands also fail right here, is the middle of funnel. The middle of funnel is why should I trust this brand? Let me go search it on Google or TikTok or ChatGPT or whatever and see what comes up. That is where most brands fail. And if you have a ton of content that, because you've seeded out product in the right way, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on TikTok, which by the way are two of the most visited places for this middle of funnel check, call it the middle of funnel vibe check, right? Is this brand legit? Are they going to steal my credit card? Does the product actually deliver on what it says? Obviously, the brand is going to say, yes, we deliver. We're not going to steal your credit card. Everything is secure. our customer reviews are amazing, yada, yada, yada. But is that actually true? That's where people go to TikTok and Reddit or YouTube. And you cannot make that stuff up. That's why seeding and playing in TikTok shop, playing in this YouTube world is the best way to go. Two great brands that come to mind that executed this with perfection. One is Cadence capsules. If you've seen those beautiful travel capsules, their website is keepyourcadence.com. Okay. Feel free to go to the site. You'll start to get retargeted with their ads, which by the way are beautiful. Their organic Instagram, beautiful. If you search their product on TikTok, gorgeous. If you look on YouTube, gorgeous. Same thing with 8 Sleep. 8 Sleep is a smart mattress. A few years ago when they realized, I'm talking like 6 years ago, when they realized that people just needed to see that the proof is in the pudding and that it does work, they went really, really hard on YouTube. And it's like probably, in my opinion, it's probably one of the best investments they made because it pays off every single day where no matter now what they run top of funnel, whether they sponsor an F1 driver, they sponsor a wellness event, they sponsor a podcast, everybody's going to do the same exact thing, which is go and Google it and see what happened. Is it real? Does it work? How is it? And their middle of funnel investment that they made years ago, it pays off for them every day. Last thing I didn't really touch on too much is TikTok Live here. But to be honest, I would say not play at your own risk, but make your own investment decisions here because I think there's more juice to be squeezed out of shop and affiliates than there probably is with live. I think you can do a lot with live. However, I think that there's also a time and place for it. And, you can also, live is also one of those things you can test with creators. So you don't have to do live directly from you as the brand. You can actually run live from creators themselves. All right. The next one I want to get into is advertorials. So, now, advertorials is, I heard this term from Jesse Puggi, who started Ampush. He sold it to Tenuity, another massive agency. But Jesse's a genius, and he had this concept called secondary presence. And it is basically first-party data, insights, content, information, and third-party proof, social proof, trust, validation. You put it together, and that's how you come to this concept of secondary presence. Now, there's a couple ways to go about this. First of all, if you don't know what advertorials are, break the word up. Ad editorial. It's an editorial piece of content, so usually long-form content, distributed within internet publishers, right? So think refinery29.com, BuzzFeed.com. Now, back 8 years ago when I was approaching all these publishers, the two I just named and many more, they were like, hey, we can do an article on our site, $50,000. And I thought, you guys are out of your minds if you think I'm going to pay you $50,000. I did end up paying 50 to Refinery and 30 to BuzzFeed, another 30 to Complex, I think 12 to Babe.net. And you know what I learned is that their logo doesn't mean jack. Like their logo in the top left corner does not bring any credibility, any authority. As far as a user is concerned, they're more concerned about a clean reading experience and content that's actually interesting. There's not really a lot of, you don't get any extra firepower from being on one of these fancy websites. So what I ended up doing is at the time I created my own publisher site. And I thought, okay, well, let me basically make this the best possible reading experience. Easy font, easy to read on a small iPhone. It should load quickly in case the user has, spotty internet connection or is not on Wi-Fi. There should be no pop-ups, no ads, because if you go to any of these other websites, you should try to go to any Forbes article on your phone. It's like 10% of the page is 10% of your screen is what the article shows through and everything else is ads or pop-ups. But all that to say, you can go and build your own advertorial website. You can just do these things and you can put your own pixel on and you can put your own stories up. Now, granted, you don't want to lie, so put real stories. I used to always talk about customer stories. Brands always get customers who write in, whether it's on Instagram or they email the founder, or you hear about it while you're out at some brand related event, and you hear about how a product or a brand has somehow done something amazing for this person, and you want to tell that story. And the best way to do it is honestly put it in these long form advertorials. Why? Because people love to read stuff. I don't know if you've been keeping up with Twitter specifically in the last like 2 to 3 months, but the format of content on Twitter has really shifted, even with AI slop becoming bigger and et cetera, et cetera. Long form content where people are entertained and hooked is where it's at. That's like the best place to create right now. It's as good as those street interview style videos, I would say. And it's very easy to do. You go, you buy a domain, right? Let's say you buy dailyhealth.co, right? Or America's favorite doctor.com. Probably don't buy that one. But you get my point, right? dailywellness.co. Now, you get the domain, you set up a WordPress or a Webflow theme, you put up the content, you put a separate Facebook pixel on, and you start driving traffic from a whitelisted Instagram and Facebook page. I don't know if you can get those verified right off the bat because they're not human pages, but if you can, all the more power to you. Now, once you start driving traffic, anywhere from 5 to 15% of that traffic will end up clicking through to your product page, to your landing page. Ideally, you're going to a landing page with an offer that's been tested, right? You want to, in any experiment, you want to minimize how many things are new. So you do that, but then the other, call it 85 to 95% of people who would supposedly just leave or not click through. Previously, you couldn't hit those people again because they were on a third-party website. Now you can. Your own separate Facebook pixels on that website, you can retarget them either with ads that come from the whitelisted page, right? Hey, partner offer with Good On Ya, blah, blah, blah. Or you retarget them with a special offer from the brand page, and you give them some specific offer there. That said, advertorials, I cannot believe more brands don't do this. Every brand that I've worked with, whether their AOV is, granted, I will say that the checklist for advertorials, you either have a product that is somewhat hard to explain or requires some level of education or learning, higher AOV, and then higher price compared to its category. If you have two of those three or all three, advertorials should work really well. But advertorials are really easy to get set up. Within 3 hours, you can have a website set up. Within 4 hours, you can have a website set up with an article live. And within 6 hours max, assuming it takes you 2 hours to set up some simple ads, 6 hours, you can have a fully live advertorial, testing it. And the beauty about advertorials is you can get these things live. Just like with an internal creator, you have this person internal. With advertorials, it's just a website. You just got to put a new article up. So at night, you can write an article. The next morning, you can have it live, whether it's a listicle, whether it's I saw this X all over Instagram, so I had to try it. Here's what happened. Whether it's Good On Ya versus Liquid IV, here's who won out. All of those angles work, and they're all so easy to copy paste and try out. And as long as you're not lying, you're actually showing, selling a good product. These will work really well. For any of the brands that we got these Facebook quarterly reports back from, they come back from the Disruptors team, which is like a more specialized, think like a SEAL Team 6, but at Facebook, just for the high growth brands. They all said advertorials doubled in terms of share of media spend. Why? Because they're so easy to put out. They work so well. People want to be entertained. They don't want to click an ad. And this is entertainment. This is just another form of entertainment. So advertorials is one that I think most people need to do. And to be honest, another one that just couples really well with advertorials is just whitelisting in general. So I talked about it a little bit earlier, but if you're not whitelisting, if you're listening to this podcast, running the ads or involved in the ads, and you're not whitelisting, go and whitelist your own account. Go whitelist your dog's account. Create a new page for DIY fitness tutorials or for meal prep content and go whitelist that account. I'm jumbling my words because some of these things are so dead simple and still people don't do it. But get to the whitelisting, try the advertorials, and you're going to see what happens. Okay, last couple things I'm going to actually save for a different episode. And one of them is basically TV and one of them is direct mail. And I think there's enough time within both of those to go pretty deep. So I'm going to save those for another episode. But that said, we're back. It's season 15, baby. We're in it. If you got an idea of a good podcast episode or something I can research, dive into, or something you want to hear about, a new channel, DM me on Twitter at Mr. Sharma. You can also email me, nick@nick.co. That's NIK@NIK.co. If you want to jump on and share your story, you want to talk about how you scaled a brand from X to Y, a new channel you're using, et cetera, let me know. Just shoot me an email, shoot me a DM. I'm excited to hear from you. And I can't wait for what's coming this year. I hope you guys are ready. I'll see you next week. Enjoy the rest of your week and talk to you soon. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next time to cut through the noise on CPG, retail, and e-commerce. If you enjoyed this episode, why not share it with a friend? And be sure to subscribe wherever you listen so you don't miss the next one.